present, some of these are done by the ward sisters, some by our nurses, some by voluntary workers, and others are not done at all.
So
The patients are missing out.
It is pretty urgent then that somebody else take this job from the nursing staff.
It would be very helpful if they do.
Doctor, is it a matter of finance here as well?
Well, this is a consideration that comes in, but it's not the overriding consideration in this. We feel that some community involvement in a project like this is very good from the hospital's point of view.
It's not a new idea, it's only new to Newcastle, I gather.
Yes, the system of having pink ladies as voluntary workers has worked successfully in various Sydney hospitals and some Melbourne hospitals for some years.
And how soon do you think you can get it underway?
Well, we're going to call for any interested ladies to come in to the hospital, to the nurses' home, at 11 a.m. on Tuesday, the 28th of July, and everybody who is at all interested in this project is most welcome to come along.
What's the problem, Doctor? Are you running out of blood?
The present problem is not an emergency appeal for blood, but we want to recruit more blood donors to our panel. We have about 9,500 blood donors at the present time, and we find that approximately 20% of these are inactive. So we want more blood donors on the panel at the present time.
Well, to have a new blood bank coming up in the near future, is this going to give you, apart from better facilities, greater capacity?
Yes, this will give us better facilities for bleeding patients when they come, better surroundings for the people who come in to donate blood, and better laboratory facilities for us to process the blood after it's obtained from the donor.
Well, a sort of final question here, I know it'll be a harbinger of doom, but what happens if you don't get more blood donors?
Well, it means that the use for which to which blood is put at the present time may suffer. This is the resuscitation of people after major accidents, the resuscitation of people after major surgery, which are the two principal uses of blood in the hospital at the present time.
You'd have to charge for blood?
We hope never to reach this stage here, that it's a voluntary donation, and we hope to keep it this way.
And anybody who wants to donate does what?
They can either telephone the blood bank of the hospital at 23990 or write to the blood bank, Blood Transfusion Service, care of Royal Newcastle Hospital, and an appointment will be made for you to come into the blood bank.
Mrs. Hall, have you any other children?
Yes, little girl Joanne, 18 months.
And what do you plan to call this one?
Scott Richard.
After anyone in particular?
Well, Richard's a family name on both sides since my husband's middle name.
Was it a complete coincidence that you came into hospital at the same time, in the same hospital?
It wasn't really. It took us about a week to talk my sister's husband into letting her come in to the Mater. He wanted her to go to another hospital so she'd be closer to Wall's End. And I just said, well, if you came here, we might just fluke it to get in together, and it was a big joke.
Mrs. McDonald, look. What are you calling your baby?
Anthony Graham.
After anyone?
Oh, after his father's Graham.
Have you any other children?
No, it's the first.
Well, do you plan any more?
Oh, yes, I'd like another one in 18 months.
Our guest tonight is Mr. Charles Watson, an Associate Director of the International Commission for the Prevention of Alcohol. Mr. Watson, I believe this commission devolves into other fields of dependence.
Yes, we usually work in three areas: problem of dependence on alcohol, on narcotic drugs, and on tobacco.
Well, what is the comparative rate of dependence of these three?
Well, it varies very much. It varies also from country to country, from culture to culture. In a land like Australia, or in my country, in Britain or United States, where I'm working just now, I would say that the problem of alcoholism is really the most serious that we face. Alcohol is socially acceptable, but it has a very serious ill effect upon the well-being of the nations that I have mentioned. In other parts of the world where alcoholism is minimal, it may be that one of the other drugs, either tobacco or narcotic drugs, marijuana, might be a more serious problem.
Well, how does your commission operate?
We try to provide educational material for schools, for youth clubs. Each year we conduct seminars for teachers, for social workers, for medical workers, to bring together the experts from different countries to discuss the problems and to provide the latest evidence that there is of the harmful effects of any of these drugs on the human personality.
Well, do you think you're doing any good?
Oh, there's no doubt about that at all. If there was no dam, the waters would spread very rapidly, and we feel that this is really the best way to combat some of the problems that we're facing in Western society today.
Well, the drug problem seems to be the more publicised one at the moment. How do you feel about the claim that marijuana is non-addictive?
It just depends on what you mean by addictive. We describe a drug as causing dependency if the body builds up tolerance towards it. This means that the individual needs a greater and greater amount of the drug in order to get the same euphoric effect. And then when he is denied access to the drug, he has what we describe as the withdrawal syndrome. These could be either convulsive or the delirium tremens that the alcohol experiences. If a person goes through this type of an experience after taking a drug, we say that it causes physical dependence. On the other hand, there is the psychological dependence, which is probably more serious. We can rid a person of the physical effects very quickly. Probably between 3 to 10 days a person is absolutely clear. But it is the psychological and the emotional dependence which is the more serious problem. And while it is true that marijuana has little or no physical addiction or dependence on the physical side, yet it is psychologically dependent. This is one problem. Another is that it distorts the sense of distance and of time. This could be very, very serious, particularly in a person who is driving a car.
Would you advocate stronger penalties for drug users and pushers?
It would depend on which country you're talking about. I think that there might be some adjustment in the penalties. For instance, if a boy is experimenting with a drug, I believe that his penalty should be very much less than a person who is making very great financial gains. There is tremendous profit that is being made out of the sale of these illegal drugs, and I believe that those who are in the drug traffic ought to have more severe penalties, and in some instances it may be that a more lenient penalty, if that's the correct term, might be introduced for some who are simply going into it for adventure or just for the experience.
Well, what, as you see it, is the future outlook of the drug scene? Is it going to get worse?
I have no doubt at all, but that the drug scene will be getting quite a lot worse before it gets better. I believe that there's a great deal of misinformation that's around. I believe that there is a climate of opinion, particularly amongst young people, which indicates that they want to experiment even more with this. But I believe that finally, with suitable safeguards and education, we'll be able to lick this problem.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. Our guest tonight has been Mr. Charles Watson, an Associate Director of the International Commission for the Prevention of Alcohol.
What chance do you think Newcastle has of getting a new school?
I wouldn't wish to be over-optimistic about it. Much depends upon local reaction, local support. Surely the profession here is well aware of that and is fully backing it. The university is fully backing it. As to whether these sort of demands will qualify a government's decision, I can't foretell.
What sort of problems confront Newcastle in getting a school?
The chief problem is a financial one. Without financial support for the very costly establishment that a medical school involves, we can't do it.
What sort of money would you need?
To a dimension which I wouldn't be fully qualified to say, and it depends rather upon whether we work closely in conjunction with an established teaching hospital such as Royal Newcastle Hospital, or what type of medical school is evolved. There are various sorts of medical schools, you should understand, and one of the prophecies we'll be examining in tonight's seminar is whether this will be a conventional or a radical type of medical school, whether it will have any special emphases, whether we should be looking, for example, to producing more general practitioners, or whether this sort of emphasis has particular application to the Newcastle area.
Newcastle Hospital here.
Something new has been started at Royal Newcastle Hospital in the way of the treatment for diabetics. Our guest tonight is the man who's in charge of the diabetic unit there. I can't name him because medical ethics prohibit it. But, Doctor, what does a diabetic go through these days to get his treatment?
Well, at the present time they attend their own doctor, or they may attend a diabetic clinic such as is at the hospital. But the majority of them, I would say 100% of them, are under some form of medical control, either from their own doctor or, as I say...
Quite a number of diabetics, more than most people will realise.
Yes, it's about 1% of the population, and that would mean there are 3,000 to 6,000 in this area alone.
Well, what is new about the treatment that you're instituting at Royal Newcastle?
Well, it sort of dawned gradually on me that I didn't personally have time to tell each diabetic what I felt they needed to know to understand their own disease, and therefore to adequately control their diabetes and to live with it and to live a normal life with diabetes. And guilty conscience in the end prevails, and I said, well, I've got to tell my patients this, but I cannot spend 3 or 4 hours telling each individual patient all the things that I think they should know. So from this arose the idea of having a class to which the diabetics could attend.
And it's not so much a new clinic or even a new treatment, it's just making better use of the old treatment.
Yes, there's nothing new in it at all, apart from the point of view of educating people to understand what they're doing. There'll be none of the old business of saying, you take X units of insulin a day, or you take 2 tablets, you follow this diet, but don't understand what you're doing. We're trying to get people to understand what is happening and why they are doing it.
Surely people who have been taking tablets or giving themselves needles and running tests on themselves for years must feel that they understand their disease pretty well.
Yes, and this very frequently is the dreadful thing about it, because this was one of the reasons, of course, that provoked me into doing what we're doing, because so many people come in who've had diabetes for 10 or more years, and I can nearly predict what they're going to say that I know is wrong. You'll hear a diabetic will commonly say to me, oh, I must have sugar in my urine, or I don't feel well, and I just feel like tearing my hair out because I know that they don't understand their disease, and then we've got to start from scratch and try and explain it to them.
Is this new clinic, if I can call it that, is it confined to outpatient members?
No, it's it's a community thing. I thought, well, if we're going to tell our patients, then we may as well let anybody else who wishes to come. They don't have to belong to the hospital. They don't have to enrol. They just turn up and listen. They don't know who we are, we don't know who they are, they go away, and that's it. And
Well,
we hope that they will therefore learn something more about
For
their
the
disease.
benefit of diabetics in Newcastle, you'd better say where and when it is.
Oh, well, it's the first Monday in every month. That's public holidays excluded. It's held at 9 o'clock in the morning and runs till 12:30, and again at 7 o'clock until 10:30. It's held in Pacific Street in the, I've got to be careful here, I always say the old nurses' home, the nurses' old home. And there will be people speaking, such as a chiropodist talking about care of the feet, dietitians explaining about diets, and nursing sisters talking, and then there'll be another physician or myself discussing with the audience, who we expect to interrupt and say, look, I don't understand that, please tell me more. And if they do this, you can be sure there'll be 20 others in the audience also that won't understand. And we hope that by this personal approach to it, we will get the message through to a large number of people. We're not, of course, competing with anybody else. This is the big thing, I must say, that we know that it takes us a minimum of 4 hours for each individual patient. Now, this means that every other doctor's in the same boat. He cannot devote this time either. And so we expect that a number of doctors will say, well, you go along and listen to these. If there's anything they disagree with in what we say, we'll soon hear about it. So that we expect that it will be a good thing, and that a lot of people should benefit from it.
Well, good cause though it is, we can't spare any more time either. So we'll say thanks to our guest, the doctor from the Royal Newcastle Hospital's Clinic for the Treatment of Diabetics.
Well, it's not always the best case that is the one that is successful. I think you've got to not only have the best case, but you've got to have the most emphasis from the whole of the community, a real campaign, so that your case is heard everywhere where a decision is likely to be made.
We know that the hospitals, all of them, and the university, the City Council and one or two others are making submissions, which covers most of the official organisations in the town. But what about the thousands of people who want a medical school here that haven't got a voice?
Well, they can only work through their own organisations, political or community organisations, through their local representatives, either on the political nature or even local government-wide.
Keep coming back to political. Do you think it's going to be a political decision in the long run?
Well, it will be, I think, in the finality, and that's why it's a question of putting as much pressure as we possibly can by through the news media, who I believe state ministers hold in very high regard, so that anything coming through the news media here in Newcastle does have a bearing on decisions that are made by ministers in Sydney, and especially in relation to the medical school here, because Mr Jago has said that he's sympathetic to our case. So that if we can push it a bit further, not only making sympathetic but make a decision, well, and I think if he feels the whole of the community and not just the leaders want it, well, I think this strengthens our argument.
It brings me back to the point. You still think Newcastle's got the best case?
I think it's got the best case, but it's not always the best case that gets the right decision.
You've got to have the numbers.
You've got to have the numbers and the people behind you.
Yes, I think we've got the usual round of winter illnesses, plus perhaps the introduction of this flu virus, although we haven't been able to isolate it in our laboratories as yet. We are examining specimens at the present time to see if it can be positively identified.
And what sort of symptoms should people look for?
This is a moderately severe illness which will start off as a sore throat, going on to a sinus infection, producing headaches and pains in the head, and then working its way down to the chest to produce a bronchitis. This may, of course, in a debilitated person, go on to a severe pneumonia. This is where the problems might arise.
Who's at greatest risk then?
Usually the two extremes of life, the very young infants, smaller children, and the elderly people, as well as this, the debilitated person with chronic disease, or the person with a history of severe chest infections.
And what about vaccination? Will that help?
Vaccination at this stage would not be recommended, because the vaccine should be administered in the autumn to get a good effect, and it needs 2 injections 1 month apart. The people who have had the vaccine this year would have reasonable protection, because this Port Chalmers strain is included in the current vaccine.
I see. What sort of precautions should people take if they contract flu?
Well, the person who is an ordinary healthy child or adult to start off with should go to bed and take symptomatic treatment in the form of aspirin, taken with discretion, and keep their fluid intake reasonable in the form of fruit juices or something like this, and to stay in bed for 2 or 3 days while the acute symptoms are present.
Well, it's surprisingly enough, I think it involves about 25% of the people in the community, say in a lifetime. I would think that a factor that a lot of people wouldn't know, that there is more people treated in psychiatric hospitals than cancer, heart disease, motor accidents combined.
So that's obviously why you brought this booth out into the public.
Well, we feel that we want to educate the public in the area of mental health. We feel that there's a certain stigma that's required to be dealt with, and we asked the people of Newcastle or other areas to come out and not to be afraid to talk about mental illness.
So what's been the reaction of the booth so far this week?
Well, a surprising thing to us, we have spoken to people who have come along. What did surprise us mostly was the young people that are coming along and seeking information. It's either for their friends or their families, and we feel this is really good.